Hello everyone, welcome to the Newfoundland Symphony Orchestra's Rhythm and Recess video series. I'm Mark David, Music Director and Principal Conductor of the NSO. Each Wednesday morning at 11 for your recess break, you can join one of our principal players who will share with you knowledge about the instruments they play. This will be done by performance, storytelling, and art, just to name a few. You will also learn about the origins of our Newfoundland music and many other things too. You can access our free, easy-to-download student resource anytime by visiting our NSO homepage. Click on Education and Outreach and then click once more to access our Google Drive. Once inside, you will find videos about the orchestra families and the various instruments, as well as many PowerPoints and activities related to composers and their music. You will also find lots of musical arrangements designed just for you. Thanks for spending your recess with us today, and now let's get to know your NSO.
Hi everybody, my name's Frank, and I'm the principal double bass player in the Newfoundland Symphony Orchestra. Welcome to the NSO video series, Rhythm and Recess. In this video, we're going to be looking at and listening to two different kinds of basses. Double bass, or stand-up bass, and electric bass, also called bass guitar. We're going to talk a little bit about how they're different and a little bit about how they're the same. Okay, so let's start with double bass. So at first glance, this looks like a really big violin. It has a wooden body, sound holes. It's hollow inside so sound can bounce around. It has a wooden bridge, 4 strings, a fingerboard to play the notes on, and some tuning pegs or tuning mechanisms up at top. This instrument has everything in common with all the other stringed instruments that you find in a symphony orchestra. Those are violin, viola, cello, and double bass. In terms of its history, the bass and the other strings go way back, at least 500 years, back to around the 1500s, where they sort of all developed together and took their place as the string section in a symphony orchestra. Okay, so let's look at electric bass now. It doesn't really look like a violin at all. In fact, it looks kind of like a big guitar. That's exactly what this is. It's a modified electric guitar. Its history doesn't go back 500 years like the double bass. It was invented in the 1930s, less than 100 years ago, along with the invention of the electric guitar. People would modify their guitars, make them bigger, put bigger strings on them so they could play low notes. And in 1950, a man named Leo Fender, this is a Fender bass, he standardized the look and the design of the bass, and it remains the same today, virtually unchanged in 100 years. Okay, so we've looked at both basses, and we've seen they're pretty different. But what do they sound like? Do they sound the same or different? Let's find out. I'll play a passage on each bass, the same short melody, so that you can hear them and compare how they sound. This melody you will hear was composed by J.S. Bach, a very famous Baroque composer who lived from 1685 to 1750. Okay, so what did you think? Did they sound the same or did they sound different? One thing you might have noticed while listening to that was I played double bass first by plucking with my fingers. That's called pizzicato. And then I played with the bow. That's called arco. All 4 members of the string family are played these 2 ways, pizzicato and arco. I'm going to play another short passage now on both basses, and I want you to listen for the difference between pizzicato and arco. Also, I want you to pay attention to the left hand, the hand that is pressing down the strings on each instrument. See if you notice anything. This melody that you will hear is very recognizable. So we've talked a little bit about how these two basses are different, but let's see how they're the same. When you were watching that previous clip, what did you notice about the left hand, the hand that was pressing the strings down? It might have been a bit hard to tell from the video, but you may have noticed that they were doing exactly the same thing. They were making the same movements, moving from string to string and from note to note in exactly the same way. From the point of view of someone who plays these instruments, they actually have something very important in common. They have the same 4 strings tuned to the same 4 notes. And they both have a fingerboard, or in this case a fretboard, to play the notes on. That means if you can play one, you can play the other. If you play double bass, you can play electric bass. And if you play electric bass, you can play the double bass. And there's something else that these instruments have in common that's very important. And that is their role or their function in music. It doesn't matter what kind of group or ensemble you play in. It could be a symphony orchestra or a concert band or a jazz band or even a rock group. These instruments play the bass line, the lowest notes. The bass is the foundation that the rest of the music sits on. Now, that doesn't mean you always have to play the bass line. Both of these basses actually have a pretty big range. They can both play low notes, middle notes, and high notes. So let's listen to a little more music now, and let's hear the double bass stepping out of its comfort zone a bit and trying to play a melody. This is a piece called The Swan, and it was written by Camille Saint-Saëns, and it's part of a suite called Carnival of the Animals, and it was written in 1886. Alright, now let's listen to the electric bass and see what it sounds like when it plays some of the notes in its higher register. Here's an example of J.S. Bach's Cello Suite No. 1 played on electric bass. Well, alright, I hope you've learned a little bit about double bass and electric bass today. I hope you've enjoyed a bit of what they sound like. And we'll conclude with one more selection from Carnival of the Animals, this time a piece written specifically for the double bass. This is The Elephant.